There is someone in your memory right now. You didn't choose to think of them. They just arrived. Maybe it's been months, maybe years. You've met people since then, talked longer, laughed harder, and still, somehow it's their voice you hear in the quiet moments. Why does the mind do this? Why do some people fade like footprints in sand, while others carve themselves into stone? Stay with me. This isn't about love or loss or nostalgia. This is about how your brain decides what gets to stay. Part 1. The weight of a person. Think about the people who still visit your mind uninvited. They're rarely the ones who gave you the most. Often they're the ones who left something unfinished. A conversation that stopped mid-sentence. A version of closeness that never got to become anything else. A feeling you didn't get to name before it ended. This isn't sentimentality, it's architecture. Psychologists call it the Zeigarnik effect, the mind's tendency to remember unfinished tasks more vividly than completed ones. Your brain doesn't file away an open loop the way it files away a closed one. An open loop stays active, lit, waiting. So when a person exits your life without resolution, without a real ending, your mind doesn't archive them. It keeps a tab open, quietly, in the background, for years if it has to. Part 2. You're not obsessed, you are wired. If you've ever felt ashamed of how long someone has stayed with you, stop. This isn't weakness. It isn't an inability to move on. It's a nervous system doing exactly what it evolved to do. Human memory was never built to store everything. It was built to store what mattered for survival, and emotionally significant experiences, especially ones tied to connection, safety, or unresolved threat, get tagged differently in the brain. The amygdala, which processes emotional intensity, works closely with the hippocampus, which encodes memory. When an experience carries strong emotional charge, these two regions essentially write in permanent ink, not because the person was more important than anyone else, but because your brain, at the time, believed the feeling was too significant to lose. You are not broken for remembering. You are proof that the memory was built the way memory is supposed to work. Part 3. The mechanism. Why some people become unforgettable. Let's go deeper into why some people specifically. There are 3 psychological ingredients that make someone linger. First, intermittent emotional reinforcement. If someone gave you closeness unpredictably, warm, then distant, then warm again, your brain treated them like a variable reward. This is the same mechanism behind slot machines. Unpredictable reward creates stronger neural engagement than consistent reward. Not because it feels better, because your brain can't stop trying to solve it. Second, identity entanglement. Some people arrive during a season when you were becoming someone. First love, first heartbreak, a friendship during a fragile year. Their presence gets fused with your sense of self during that time. You don't just remember them, you remember who you were around them. Third, emotional peak end memory. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman found that we don't remember experiences as a whole. We remember the peak moment and the ending. If someone gave you an emotional peak, a moment of feeling deeply seen, and then the ending was sudden or incomplete, both extremes get locked in, the high and the unfinished fall. That combination is almost impossible for the brain to file away quietly. Part 4. A framework for living with the memory. You cannot force forgetting. Trying not to think of someone paradoxically makes the brain think of them more. This is called the ironic process theory, discovered by psychologist Daniel Wegner. The suppression itself becomes a reminder. So the goal isn't erasure, it's integration. Here is a framework built on psychology, not willpower. 1. Name the open loop. Ask yourself plainly what wasn't finished. A conversation? An apology? A version of yourself you miss. Naming the loop weakens its grip.
The Zeigarnik effect loses intensity once the mind stops treating it as unresolved information and starts treating it as known information. 2. Separate the person from the feeling. Often what you miss isn't them, it's the feeling of being chosen, or safe, or alive in a particular way. Ask yourself, is it the person I miss or the version of being seen they gave me? This distinction changes everything. 3. Let the memory exist without inviting it to stay. You don't have to fight a thought that arrives. You can simply not offer it a chair. Acknowledge it. Let it pass through. This trains the nervous system that the memory is no longer an emergency. 4. Create new peak moments. Since memory favors peaks and endings, give your present life new peaks worth remembering. New experiences don't erase old ones, but they compete for space in a way rumination cannot. 5. Give the story an ending, even if they never did. You are allowed to close a loop that someone else left open. Write the final sentence yourself, even if only in your own mind. Part 5. The one mental model to remember. Here is the simplest way to hold everything we've covered. Think of memory not as a photo album, but as a rope with knots. Most experiences are smooth thread. They pass through you without catching. But certain experiences, the unfinished ones, the emotionally intense ones, the identity-shaping ones, form knots. The rope still moves forward. Life still continues. But your hand catches on the knot every so often. Not because you're stuck, because the knot is simply part of the rope now. You don't have to cut it out, you just have to keep walking and let your hand pass over it gently, without gripping. Closing. So if someone still visits your mind uninvited after all this time, it doesn't mean you're incomplete. It means your brain did its job. It protected something that once felt important. You don't need to forget them to be free. You only need to stop asking why they're still there and start letting them simply be there quietly, like an old knot in a long rope that keeps moving forward anyway. You were never meant to lose the memory. You were only ever meant to carry it differently.